Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. When it comes to the Warzone meta, obviously, we're always talking about the best of the best weapons in the game, whether they are the weapons with the absolute fastest TTK, or maybe some of the lowest recoil weapons, some of the more versatile options between close range, mid range, and long range, whatever the case may be. But something that factors into every single engagement that you get into, regardless of if you're using the #1 absolute most overpowered broken meta weapon or the biggest piece of trash, aka the M16, is your level of skill, your accuracy, your ability to control recoil over any range. Obviously, you can use the best weapon in the game with the best damage, but if you only hit a quarter of your shots, it's going to be worse for you than a weapon that just has mediocre damage that you hit, 80% of your shots, whatever the case may be. And so today I wanted to focus in on a new update that we recently got that can help focus more on what weapon is going to work the best for you in any given situation. So as we dive into the details, if you are new here, every single day I'm your one-stop shop for all things going on in COD, meta breakdowns, news, updates, patch notes, you name it, it's all right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. And if you enjoy the video, do me a favor, drop a like on it, would be seriously appreciated. But we are here on True Game Data, and massive shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, Tony, owner of True Game Data, because he's recently updated the site that gives us such a better way to break down certain weapon statistics. So on this list here, we've got some of the top tier mid to long range weapons: the Cast-Off 7.62, the M13B, the Lockman 5.56 for a specific reason, some higher recoil options like the RAL MG and the fully auto Lockman 7.62, and the HCR, another lower recoil option. And if we go ahead and we look at just the straight up stats here with combination shots, 300 health as always for the most accurate TTKs, you guys can see there. I mean, we get our very basic chart, and this is a chart that we look at all the time. But keep in mind, all the data, all the stats that we see here is based on 100% accuracy, you landing every single shot. So these are the best theoretical TTKs. This is not the exact stats you'll see in game. And I often try and preface this whenever we're talking about stats. Yes, for instance, the full auto Lockman 7.62 has a better TTK than the M13, but in game that might not always translate because you're gonna miss shots. Well, Tony has actually gone through and implemented this true TTK simulation feature, which is going to allow us to much more realistically look at this graph. So if I were to toggle this on, essentially what we see now is this tab on the right, just underneath my face cam, where I can input the accuracies of every single weapon here, and that'll give us the TTK of if we actually land that in game. So what you can do basically now is you can go into the firing range and shoot the 7.62, shoot the Lockman 5.56, or the RAL, or the full auto 7.62, and see what your accuracy is, say on the farthest dummy, just to get a good idea. And then you can come over here and input the accuracy for those weapons, and it'll give you what your realistic TTK will actually look like in game. So I'm going to go through some numbers here, and we'll base this on the ease of use of these weapons, just in theory here, to basically make the overall point, right? So the 7.62 is a relatively easy weapon by comparison to some of these other options, but it's got more noticeable recoil than some of the other rifles in the game. So let's say on the 7.62 you're hitting 52% of your overall shots, right? For what it's worth, rarely ever are you going to be landing over like 80 or 90% of your shots. You'd be lucky to hit 70% in long distance engagements. Like, most weapons in this game take, I would say, anywhere between 8 and maybe 15 shots to kill. How often though are you actually downing someone in straight up 10 bullets over 60 meters or something, so we'll say just over half your shots with the 7.62. The M13 is a little bit easier though, so we'll say you're going to hit 58% with your M13. The Lockman 5.56 is probably the second or maybe first easiest weapon on this list. We'll say you're landing 62% of your shots with the 5.56. The RAL, though, a much heavier, recoil weapon in general, much heavier hitting, but higher recoil, might be more difficult over range. Let's say on the RAL, you're only hitting 43% of your shots. HCR up there with the Lockman 5.56 in terms of ease of use. We'll say 62% on that as well. And then this is what I wanted to do simply for the, I think best example here of what realistic TTK does to a weapon. We have two Lockman 7.62 in full auto, and as we just saw in that graph, know that this is the absolute most broken TTK in the game. The Lockman 7.62 is absolutely just nuts, insane in full auto. The TTK is like nothing else in the game over range, but it's so unrealistic because when you put the Lockman 7.62 in full auto, it is ridiculously hard to use. So for one of these 7.62s, I want to have the 100% accurate TTK, like what we'll usually see there. And then let's say you're going to hit, like I said, I think this is the most difficult recoil weapon on this list. Let's say you hit 35% of your shots. shots with the Lockman 762, and we'll see the difference in TTK here. So I'm gonna click simulate. It's going to start simulating with the fancy little loading icon here, and boy, do we get a different chart. Initially, I want to hide everything but the Lockman 762s because this is going to give us that drastic difference in reality, right? You have the 100% accurate TTK, which is utterly hilarious at how broken this thing is, right? And then you have it if you're hitting just under 40% of your shots, which is a lot more realistic for like an average player trying to use this. And you can see that TTK is nowhere close to being as realistic. Heck, even if you're really good and you hit 50% of your shots, we'll simulate this again really quick and see what the chart looks like. Up that accuracy a little bit more, go through and hide everything but the Lockman 762s again. And you can see even at 50% of your shots hitting, it's a major difference there. One that's going to take this weapon from being the most broken weapon in the game to something that's not nearly as effective even. And we can go back and obviously show everything here there. Now, that said, if you're able to hit 50% of your shots with the 762 in full auto, the Lockman 762 in full auto, it's going to be really solid still, like basically second or first best realistic TTK there, just behind our yellow line, which is the HCR. But you think of that and you say, okay, the HCR is a low recoil weapon that doesn't have crazy damage, but it's so easy to use. I can actually have a similar TTK to maybe the best damage weapon in the entire game over range. Like, that's a major difference in what you might want to be throwing on your loadout. Let's drop this back down to that 35% mark. Like I said, I think more realistic for some average players that might just pick up the gun, seeing the stats and thinking it's going to be crazy good. The HCR ends up being a really optimal choice here because even though it's mediocre damage, past that 40 meter range, nothing is particularly close to it because it's so easy to use. Same deal with the M13 and the Lockman 556, our orange and our blue lines here. Over range, they end up being the three best TTK options, even though there's some lower damage, setups here compared to the 762 and the RAL, which are powerhouses in their respective categories, just because they're not as easy to use. So this is why accuracy and your personal level of skill is so important in factoring in, is this meta actually for you? Or is this even a meta weapon for you? You know, statistically, we can talk about how, yes, the 762 has a great TTK out of the rifle category on paper. Yes, the Lockman Shroud has a ridiculously broken TTK on paper. Can you actually achieve that in game though with your level of skill? Well, this gives you a much better transparent breakdown of, yes, this is a true meta weapon. Yes, this is a meta weapon for high skill players. No, this is not a meta weapon because the vast majority of players are never going to achieve this TTK with this. So this is a wildly useful tool for helping you figure out what is worth running. So, you know, when you see X is the new best meta or Y is the new best meta, go into the firing range, test out your accuracy, see how lethal you are with these weapons in your hands, and then go here and input this data and see, okay, does it actually stand true? If I only hit 60% of my shots with this gun, does it still outgun some of these easier guns that I'll land, you know, less shots with or more shots with in any given scenario? So again, huge shout out to Tony. This man is doing so much for the Warzone community that can give us a new level of stats and a new level of insight into gameplay here to really optimize things for you. That being said, that's going to wrap things up for today. If you guys enjoyed the video, if you found it helpful, do me a favor, drop a like on it, would be seriously appreciated. And also go and check out True Game Data. I'll leave a link to the site, obviously, down in the description below. But also, if you guys want to guarantee you're always up to date with all things going on in COD, whether it's news, updates, meta breakdowns, you name it, it's all right here. Feel free to hit that subscribe button on the way out as well. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I will catch you guys later. Peace out.